So I'd like to start this episode with just a brief reminder of a service my brother has set up called Compassionate Listening and Sharing. So if you're one who may benefit from any sort of guidance and perspective on your spiritual journey, then the service is available to you, and as far as I'm aware, it's donation based, so you can choose to engage and use the services when needed, and donations and things that can be left up to you. And there is a website address that I'll put in the show notes as well, but I'll also share it with you now. The website is compassionatelisteningsharing.co.uk, and that's somewhere you can, I'm sure there's some background information about my brother and his own journey and the services that he offers. So I just wanted to begin with that before I forget. I was tempted to leave it to the end, but I thought it's important to let people know that the service and support, which is an important word on this journey as well, to whether it's getting support with anything from these audios that are recorded, or the other teachers we watch online, books we read, and now there's this service as well, where you can perhaps get something slightly more personal that may need addressing, and it's available to you there. And from time to time, if I remember, I'll mention the service there for any new listeners, and I'll always pop it into the show notes as well. Just as the previous episode, a title has been circulating in my mind for recording an upcoming episode, and that title is Tending to the Mind. And the reason that was sort of circulating in my mind, in my thoughts, was largely to do with my mental health and my addressing of my mental health as well. Quite often it's very easy to hone in and focus on spiritual teachings such as pointers or videos, and often there's a great thirst and urge to go deeper, to be present, to meditate, to discover, experience. But it was noticeable for me quite profoundly that that my mind was causing a lot of interference with seeing, with being. With residing in the present moment. And it wasn't a case of where I needed to sort of try to be more present in spite of the mind and try to, willfully deepen practice. And there was a clarity in that tending to the mind would automatically allow one to go deeper in the present moment. And it was easy for me to sense that, because there was so much, as the previous episode is titled, turmoil. And it's so simple and clear, but it's just to remind that there may be some work to do on the mind as well, to not dismiss and forget and almost belittle the mind, because quite often the mind can cause a lot of challenges. We're dealing with overcoming thoughts, patterns of mental structures, but then there's the perspective that may be lost as well, that perhaps a healthy mind, just as a healthy body, will support the path of presence, to support your practice as well. And for some, it may be extremely subtle changes that may assist the mind. For example, if there's an excess, energy in the body, that may affect the mind. So perhaps an extra walk in a day may sort of burn off the excess energy that may interfere or may add to the difficulty to remain present. It may be a case where perhaps more social connection is needed. Perhaps it's easy for an imbalance to happen where you may spend a lot of time with yourself, especially on this journey where you want to go deeper, you want to, meditation. Quite often the practice can seem solitary if there isn't any sort of like-minded, I use that phrase loosely, people on the same path as you close by. And another word you can use is sangha as well, community. And this can be quite a lonely path. Friends and family may not understand or experience or taste what you've tasted. So just to share more about my experience with this is that my mental health became so debilitating that it wasn't a case in some respects that I was going backwards. It can seem that way, and I've mentioned this before, where sometimes it can feel like, 6 months ago I was fully present. I was, during the day, for most of the day, I was aware, I was alert, I was in my inner body, and now it's chaos. But for me, it was easy to sense that the mind was very unwell. And just like if the body was unwell, if you had, let's say, if you had the flu, then it may be more challenging to step into the present moment, I say remain present, but remain is not really a good word to use, because it's, of course, it's effortless. Your presence is already there, and you're connected. And with the body, it's often easier to tend to the body. We do it in very simple ways. If we're hungry or thirsty, or we need to go to bed to sleep, then we tend to the body in that way. But say, for example, that you were to stay up all night, how would that affect your practice? Or if you were to go on an extended fast, or present certain challenges. And with mind, it feels like it's a different perspective with mind. Quite often you can see the mind as something in the way, something you want to get away from. But deep in the depths of the mind, there may be things that can be done that create or improve the health of the mind, which ultimately will reduce perhaps symptoms of mental health, or symptoms of continuous thinking, thought structures, and of course that links to pain bodies. So it's all connected. So in my instance, it was extremely severe. So in the past months that have gone by, I've taken steps to try and remedy the mind, to get on top of the symptoms I've been experiencing. And it came to me that perhaps if someone wasn't as severe, experiencing as severe symptoms as I was, perhaps there was still room to tend to the mind. Why not make life easier for you, for the conditions, the environment to be inviting for you to step into the present moment? And it's almost like if you were walking, why should you have to carry a heavy weight if you're walking in a park and enjoying it? It's almost what it felt like for me, like I was carrying a really heavy weight, a drain and a strain of my symptoms. And of course, naturally, if you were carrying something awfully heavy, can you truly enjoy the park that you're walking around? So it's something that we can do that's perhaps, it may appear to be outside of spiritual practice, tending to the mind. Of perhaps it's something with nutrition. Food can be something that may help the mind reduce anxiety, or it could be a walk outside, or doing some yoga, or reading a book, something that that may exercise the mind, and whatever it is for you. But it's just a reminder that yes, we can do our practice, can take one moment at a time. But not to neglect anything that may be almost a slight drain, that may make it that extra hard, that extra difficulty of stepping into the present moment. And for some, there may not, on the outset, appear to be any issues with mind. It may be running smoothly as it should. And that's something that can be acknowledged as well. It's almost the ideal, harmony of the mind and body. Working in its natural flow as it should. And it's not to say the goal is to have a perfect mind or perfect body. Whether it's the mental health or physical health, there may be ailments, there may be conditions that even, let's take my mental health conditions, the things I'm doing is aimed at minimizing the suffering involved, minimizing the disruption to the present moment. The symptoms I'm experiencing, it may be a lifelong issue that I may have to live with, but is there something I can do to minimize the impact, to reduce the weight and the strain? And so we go back to the notion of simplicity as well. And it's not a complicated equation. It's almost with intuition, using the present moment, using presence to understand and connect with what the body needs and what the mind needs. So for myself, it's a huge, almost undertaking I'm doing to now remedy the mind, the symptoms of mind that have been perhaps dysfunctional, is perhaps a word I relate to for myself. So I'm currently soon to begin a program from a book that's designed to reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. And for me, what I interpret that for me to be is medicine for the mind. And it's not to say that it's not isolated from the practice of presence. Everything is encompassed in presence. So that's why there's an understanding for me that these steps are, it's a remedy, a medicine for the mind. And some examples of the steps for me are, for example, morning light, to get some morning light, to the serotonin, to body clock, aligning wake up and sleep times, the functionality of the mind. For example, exercise as well, to cultivate those sort of healthy chemicals in the brain. But again, it's because it's encompassed in presence. There's no achievement that's happening here with the activities. And there's minimized pressure, minimized expectations. There's an understanding and a clarity that if I don't do this, then things will remain as they are for me. And yes, I can continue to practice, but there is the neglect of the mind, of form. And it's very easy to overlook this, especially if one is new to this path as well. Then of course it's overwhelming of look at kind of taking in spiritual content and discovery and experience, the relief and the joy of being in the present moment, the simplicity of where thinking ceases, and there's an outer and inner silence and a space and awareness. And of course this has healing qualities as well. And whatever is done with attending to the body or tending to the mind, it's all done in that aware space. It's not pausing your spiritual practice while you do this bunch of activities that are listed in a book or advised from a YouTube video, and then okay, I'll go back to spiritual practice afterwards. It's understanding that everything is consciousness. There is only the totality. And it's just to remind ourselves of that as well. And mainly reminding myself of that. And if something feels off balance, let's say you decide to do an activity that may help the mind, and you can always filter anything through the present moment. When something is off balance or having a sort of negative impact in that regard, then something is misaligned, is outside of the alignment of now, of what is needed, what is required. And you may be able to trace that back to a thought or desire or something that's not rooted in the now, that's not rooted with the ultimate intelligence which knows what is needed. And this can be applied to all of the doing of life, whether it's eating a meal. I always remember Dr. Wayne Dyer talking about the practice of eating, where for him each time He asked himself after every mouthful, is my cup full? Because quite often there's the conditioning of finishing what's on the plate. But in that sense of checking in with the body, does it need any more food? Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay. And there's not even a thought required. It's almost oh, okay, that's it. That's all I need. Hydration's another thing as well. I'm sure, quite often hear that a lot of people are perhaps not drinking enough water or fluids. And again, it's checking in with the body. It's often thought can cover up the signals that are appearing, the natural sort of signals of I need a drink. But when checking in with the body and mind within the space of alert presence, then the answers will come, what is needed. So the direction that we're heading in is the direction of peace. The direction of harmony, of oneness. So by tending to the mind, it allows the mind to be one, to support, to be in alignment of the now. Now the mind is always going to do what it does, which is it's a tool to a beautiful space for creation, for conscious thinking. Thoughts arise, dissipate. And it's allowing that to work at its most optimal level, minimize dysfunction, disruption, suffering, pain. It could be as simple as taking a few simple steps to improve sleep. For me, that's been a huge issue as well. Many nights I talk to Siri. I wake up in the middle of the night and immediately I call out to Siri and ask for the time. Which has been quite habitual recently. Sometimes it will be 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or one night recently it was 2:30 in the morning. And again, of course, each of these days is chronic tiredness in the body and mind. A huge discomfort and a huge drain, exhaustion. So it's allowing the intelligence to know what the body and mind, more in this case as we're talking about mind, what the mind needs. And again, these are not desires. in not using thought for this. So it can be anything that may seem big. Let's say, okay, a relationship, perhaps, that will complement and support the mind, where it's not a desire that I need not to be alone, or I need someone to complete me or to make me happy. So anything that comes through the alert awareness, whether it's, I say relationship because it can seem like, no, that's a desire, I do need to do that, but there's no limit to what is needed. It could be another big thing, like you need to have your own space, whatever your living situation is. It may be a case, okay, I need to have my own safe, private space. Or it could be something as small as perhaps having a wind down routine before bedtime, having some simple steps that allow the body and mind to calm and to relax before going into bed. And we are already tending to body and mind in some way, whether it's through the necessity of food and drink. But is there anything more that can help the mind, that can make this path into presence even more seamless? Part of the grace of the present moment is its limitless depth and ultimate simplicity. So even in the most chaotic of situations of suffering, you can enter presence from there. It's always available. But why not cultivate an environment, the environment of the mind, the environment of the body that supports your seeing, that allows you to rest effortlessly, even more effortlessly, in the present moment. So perhaps even, for this short minute or two before I bring this episode to a close, if you are in a space where you can safely close your eyes and just simply rest your awareness on the mind. And you're not seeking or searching. There's no effort. You're almost like shining a light on something. There's no expectations, there's no pressure, you're just allowing the awareness to sense if anything may be needed that may ease or help to assist the functionality of mind, the health of mind. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I wish you well in this one moment, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.